me and my colleagues are around this week between us, so we're just over here. So my colleague Greet is with me, and the colleague David will join us tomorrow. So to start off with some sort of big industry trends that we see if you look overall at the IoT space. So first of all, devices are getting more intelligent and connected. This is bringing cost reductions in compute, bandwidth, and sensors. And what this means is you can do, with the compute you had yesterday, today you can, with the next generation's compute, you can do more in the applications and bring new immersive and exciting experiences to customers. And these trends in the bandwidth reduction and sensors is really, bringing about consolidation of compute at the edge of the network, and I'll come more onto that later. The second big trend we'd point out is the role of autonomous. And when I say autonomous, you probably think about autonomous driving and all the exciting innovation going on there. And certainly, Intel has a good role in that. But I'll talk later about some different autonomous activity that we're involved in, particularly looking at the out-of-home signage industry. And really we see this overall space fueled by advancements in innovation in computer vision, 5G in the future, and then analytics and AI. And I'll come more back to these later. So if we move now to visual solutions, and I think being in an audience here, probably preaching to the converted, if I understand the term, in terms of I think everyone in the room is probably bought into visual as a very important, a very attractive way to engage with your audience. Some interesting stats here that we gathered together. 65% of people are visual learners, and then, which is interesting. If we look at visuals versus text, we process visual information and visual stimulus 60,000 times faster than we do text. And then finally, the human visual system can register 36,000 visual messages every hour. So clearly these, whilst I think we all are aware that visual is a very successful medium for, I think probably for everyone in the room, these are just interesting stats that myself, coming from a research background, I like stats, and I think they just help support that thought. So terms mean many things to many different people. So I wanted to share a slide on what we mean by visual solutions in Intel, and and this isn't conclusive, but this is the types of vertical markets that we're involved in, and where we see innovations in the visual solution space. So from traditional signage through we call it interactive flat panel displays, also referred to as interactive whiteboards in the market, through many use cases which I won't call them all out, but call out where we see some significant growth in areas like kiosk is a particularly growing market at the moment in the advent of self-serve. So if you look at quick service restaurants, what McDonald's have been doing with self-ordering in quick service restaurants, got hotel chains with self-check-in. Those are reducing friction and in those scenarios generating upsell. So in the McDonald's scenario, they reported a 30% increase in basket size from deploying kiosks. So lots of interesting innovation going on there. And then down at the bottom, looking at areas like vending with autonomous vending. Really, I think if we look at in summary here of what these sort of solutions bring, if we were to put it into 3 areas, we'd say it's helping bring immersive experiences to the audience, interactive experience. So these visual solutions are no longer one-way means of communication, and also without friction, so removing friction from the experience of whichever domain they're in. So as a particular vertical, we're going to sort of focus on retail. So if we look at the retail market and some trends from that space, which are let's say steering innovation, let's put it, or help influence where the innovation goes. So it's interesting, whilst we're all familiar with e-commerce buying online, that whilst 73% of shoppers are browsing online, they then buy in the store. So people still like that bricks and mortar experience, going into a store to try something on or feel a product before they buy it. But if we look at pain points, 90% of surveyed people reported that they leave when they can't find a product or get help. And 86% reported that they desired to have purchased more, but perhaps couldn't find someone to help them out with making that purchase. So those clearly areas of innovation, and in terms of the sort of product information, helping find, it's all around access to information, and that's certainly an area where some of these visual solutions we pointed to, and digital signage solutions like we see around the room can really help the people running those stores ultimately increase sales. And if we summarize this, whilst I said before that we do see this trend of online retail, that aside, they estimate that next year still 70% of sales will still be completed in store. So the black cloud of it moving away from bricks and mortar retail to online, it's not, maybe not quite that bad yet. So if we look at a retail store, and we built up some 3D models to project where you might see technology in a retail environment. So digital signage, so whether that's from your information at your point of purchase, digital menu boards if you have a catering area, and food safety displays. So there's been a lot in the news about challenges with allergies, labeling, etc. So having a way to provide up-to-date food information is very important. And as you well, we have a landing page website for this, which is launching in Q4, but will appear at the URL I describe at the top, where we'll keep an up-to-date list of where we are with the product. So I'm going to switch gears now to talk about a trend. So look at the analytics trend in digital signage. So first, to make some observation. So for over 100 years, we've had advertising information to us through the billboard area. But really the change we're seeing is that those signs and those displays are starting to see back through audience measurement, so camera-based or other technology. And the way we see it as Intel, if we look at the application of this to the advertising industry, we would classify as 3 values this can bring. So one, it helps make advertising addressable. So this means that you can reach the right audience with the right content. So you can say, I just want this type of content to show when there's a male aged 37 about 37 in front of the screen, and it will do that. Secondly, it can help make advertising accountable. So you can report back to the brand who you're advertising for and say, actually, you expected your advert to be seen by this many people, but I can tell you that 600 people saw it on this day, and this was the average amount of time they looked at the screen for. So. And then finally, which is perhaps the hardest, you can help make signage attributable. So with the right A/B testing, etc., and other technologies, you can say someone seeing this sign actually resulted in a sale in store, and that is challenging, but one of the areas we're working with the ecosystem on solving. So per that, we're helping drive some initiatives in the industry. So a colleague of mine in the US, Maroon, did this nice blog at the top left, which sort of explains more on what we're talking about there, and also is working with the DPAA, advertising body in the US, to really drive sort of common understanding around the effect that audience measurement and use of understanding what the audience in front of the sign is doing in signage. And what's Intel doing to help this, as technology? I mentioned the OpenVINO toolkit before, so we provide a toolkit to industry partners to help them create better and more innovative and diverse solutions. And we have a quote at the bottom here from the CEO of QVIDI, who's one of the leading audience measurement software providers, on their use of or their application of OpenVINO within next generation of their what they call their vid report software, which is a software they provide for that. And as a platform, this allows partners to create solutions that are agnostic to major frameworks out there. They can be high performance. So as I described before, what we're doing here is helping our software ecosystem target solutions efficiently at Intel hardware. What we're not doing is providing leading class solutions. That's for our ecosystem to do. We provide some good starting point examples, but really we're helping people innovate. And also we provide cross-platform flexibility. So once someone's wrote in this software, it can go across our stack of Intel processors, but also through our accelerator technology, such as Movidius, which is a low-power neural network accelerator, or FPGA technology, which is a more higher-end, higher power solution. So that's just a very quick snapshot on what we see on vision. I wanted to close by also taking a look at the edge market and what that means for us as a group and innovations we're driving. So firstly, to define what we mean by edge, because it's an overused term. So we would see signage and interactive displays down really in the devices and things, whilst we can get convergence of workloads on there. And then we see edge compute as sort of between there and the core network and data center. So really that can be on-prem or edge of network. And really the drivers we're seeing for deploying this edge compute are latency. So people want very responsive applications that they can't wait the time of flight to go to the cloud to and from back. So you need to put the compute closer to your devices. Virtual reality or augmented reality are good examples of those. Bandwidth. So typically for retail stores and also for other areas, bandwidth can be quite variable. Some can have really good bandwidth connections, some lower. So that variation, bringing the compute on premise can remove that variability or that risk factor. Security. So security is a key concern, and there is the perception that if you bring your compute, keep your data on premise, that can help, and that's a real driver we're seeing. Albeit, the clouds also have their good security stories as well. And finally, connectivity. So things like 4G, 5G, and the new use cases that brings are really helping unlock some exciting new use cases here. What this means in the retail and sort of crossing over into smart city is, we're seeing in whether it's in out-of-home signage or integrated within a screen, we're seeing many functions being run on the compute which is being integrated with signage, and this you can correlate. You can think of parallels across industry. So if you look at out-of-home signage totem, or this is not just doing signage. It can be running services for smart city and other functions, or 5G services. So we're seeing this consolidation of multiple workloads, at the edge, as we would refer to it. And in terms of what we're doing as a group to innovate in this area, so what we've observed is there's a lot of different solutions that people are deploying out there on the market, and really what we're looking to do is sort of help drive some standardization, if you would call it, or common understanding of what edge compute or shared edge hardware is in this space. So what we have available today that we're promoting is what we call a discrete VDD. So we have a discrete visual data device, which is, let's say, a checklist of features that we believe are important for edge hardware for the visual domain. Where we're innovating next is a bit of a window into our future. Is we're looking at making these solutions modular. So watch out for, won't go too much into that, but watch out for announcements through next year. We'll be looking at sort of modular functionality there. So that's really, it's kind of similar to where we were with if you look at what we've done with SDM, and so coming back to the showcase we're doing here with Philips, really what we're looking to do in the edge space is help drive some of that ecosystem standardization, which really hopefully will help scale those areas. So hopefully an interesting window into what we're doing at the edge. So to close the presentation, and I think a similar sentiment to this morning, to us it's our partners like Philips and a number of people in the room are critical for us to make solutions happen. So it's the ecosystem is incredibly important. We provide all the building blocks I described before, but we really look out to the ecosystem to innovate, and hopefully together we can then invent the future. So thank you for the attention, and I think now we've got some time for questions if anyone has any questions.
So you said there's time for questions, so that's the reason why I'm delayed here. But are there any questions here? And if so, then I'll come to you with the mic. But if there is a question.
You talked about an edge compute device. Did you call it a VDD, which was a set of criteria? Have you got an example of, has one of those been made yet to meet those criteria? And can you show us one?
Yes, yeah. So, so there is a number of ODMs have built them. So what we found there is we wrote down this criteria of what we said this shared edge hardware would look like, and there is some partners we've targeted, gone out and build them with. There's a bit going on in China, example. But what we've found also, which is perhaps kind of interesting, is that some of our traditional ODM partners already have products that line up nicely to that criteria. So whilst you wouldn't see them call them VDD, the likes of Dell, HP have edge devices that would line up to the sort of criteria we described. So I'd say if you look at that general sort of compute, it exists quite freely in the ecosystem today. Hopefully that helps. Yeah.
Is there another question? Then I would like to ask you to give him another warm welcome as he leaves the stage.
Thank you.
Applause.